weekly event we do every Friday at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. It's where we go over different things of the software and review training. You can find these events if you go to our website, goftx.com, choose the FTX Lifeline button, scroll down about halfway down the page, and choose the View Webinars button. This will give you a list of all of our previous webinars, which can be viewed by choosing that View Recording button, as well as toward the bottom, all of the upcoming webinars. You can register for those by choosing the Register Now button and be reminded whenever the event's about to go live. Today, we're going to be going over the POS button and panel editor. This is a very important thing that can be used to customize your POS to exactly your liking. To do that, we first need to make sure we have the POS button editor permission. And to do that, we have to go to Director. We will go to the Maintenance module. We'll go to the Employees button. And then under the POS permissions, after we choose the employee we want to manage, we'll choose the POS permissions and then make sure they have the POS button editor checkboxed. If they have that permission, then they have the ability to actually open the POS settings and go to that button editor and make changes. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and open up the point of sale. And we'll use our keypad to log in. To get to the button editor, we'll choose the Actions button. We'll choose the Settings button, and then the POS button editor. Now this page will be a list of our panels. By default, you're going to have a main panel, a subtotal panel, and a cashier functions panel. Those panels have to be there. They're required. You can build a new panel by choosing the New button, and that will allow you to basically build just a blank new panel and start from scratch. Now the main, subtotal, and cashier functions panel, those already have some default buttons. So let's take a look at how those would look. I've got mine slightly customized already. So we can see here, we have all of the buttons. If it's a small square gray button, like right here, that means it's a blank button. So anywhere that you see that little gray button, there's going to be nothing there. So for example, whenever I actually view this in the point of sale, as if I'm going to be using it, you see it's just black space. There's no button in place. Everything else obviously is a button. Now there's several options on each button. You can move a button around by simply clicking on the button, and then you'll see it gets a yellow highlight. You'll choose the Move button, and then you can move it to where you would like to have it moved to. It just has to fit in that location. So for example, I couldn't choose this large subtotal button and move it to there. So move this back. If you need to delete a button, you can simply choose the button you need to get rid of. It'll have that yellow highlight around it. Choose the Delete button. It'll ask for a confirmation. You'll choose yes, and that deletes it. Now let's say that I made a mistake and I didn't actually want to delete that button. Well, no big deal. I've not actually saved anything yet. So you can choose the Close button instead of the Save Panel button. It'll ask, are you sure you want to exit? The changes haven't been saved. You'll just choose yes. Then when I go back in that, you'll see that there's my button still there. It didn't save that deletion. So let's say that I make a change and I actually want it to save. Then I'll just simply choose the Save Panel button, and that'll save those changes. Now the three panels that are default, they have a purpose. The main panel, that's going to be like your standard, at the start of every sale, this is the screen I'm greeted with panel. The subtotal panel, that's going to be your tenders panel. Whenever you're subtotaling your transaction and you're about to complete a sale, this is going to be where your forms of payment exist. And finally, the cashier functions panel, that's going to be where it's cashier functionality. enter a starting till, do a safe drop, end your shift, do a pay in or pay out, that type of thing. It's specific to cashier functions. So before we actually get into the button editing, there's one other setting I want you to take note of, and that's whether the screen is a widescreen format or a regular square format. First, you have to make sure that the user logged in has the POS settings permission. And to do that, we go back to Director, and we'll choose the employee we want to manage. We'll choose the POS permissions, and we want to make sure they have the settings checkbox checked. If they have the settings checkbox checked, then they can go to Settings, and then you have the option to go to the Settings here. So the setting we want to look at is under Register Settings, and it's the U16:9 layout checkbox. I have mine checked. If I disable that, which I'll go ahead and do, we'll see how that changes everything. I'll open the point of sale back up and log in. And notice that everything is square. I have black space to the side of my buttons. Also notice I have no subtotal button. That's because I'm not utilizing the full widescreen layout of my monitor. So I want to get that back. So I'm going to go back to the Actions, Settings, Settings, Register Settings, and make sure that checkbox is checked for the U16:9 layout. I'll go ahead and save my changes. When we log back in, we open the point of sale back up, we're going to see that we have that widescreen format back. So let's actually start editing some buttons and see how that looks. So we'll go to our Actions, our Settings, and our POS button editor, and let's look at the main panel. So I want to add a button. I have, if we look here, I've got 2 departments I need to add a button for. And I have a lottery department, an online lottery department, and then the payouts for those departments. So I need to, since my scratch tickets are going to be scannable, I need to add an online lottery sale button. So how would I do that? Well, on this POS button editor, I can choose a blank button, and then I choose the Edit button option. This brings up the button details page. Now, whenever you choose the button type, there's a long drop down of different button types. Anytime you choose one of these options, it's going to tell you what that button does, and then if it requires a permission, what permission does it require? So in order to key in my online lottery sales, I would want an open department button. What that does is it allows me to key in a dollar amount to a department. So I'll scroll down to the open department. It tells me exactly what that does. It logs the sale to the selected department. Then I have the option to change the button size. So I'm going to, right now there's a button preview right below the description. It shows what that's going to look like. I want that to be a little bit larger, so I'm going to make that as large as it can be. The 4 button option. I'm going to put Lotto Sale as my caption. I can change that caption size if I need to. I'm going to leave that small though. The background will be what color that button actually is. So there's a variety of options here. I'm just going to choose the brown button. The glyph, that's an option to put like a little logo, a little icon to the left of the text. There's a lot of these to choose from. I'm just going to choose a random one here. Below that is a manager override required button, checkbox. I'm going to leave this unchecked. Now what this does is it's going to look to the permission of the employee utilizing this button. And if they're not a manager, it's going to prompt for a manager override. Now, a couple of webinars back, we went over permissions. And that is going to be whenever you go to your employees and you choose an employee, under the cashier info tab, there's a manager permission. So they would have to have this checkbox, this permission enabled. So for example, like the cashier here, when I go to cashier info, they don't have that manager permission. So they would, if they were to use this button, it would require a manager fingerprint or employee ID and password to log in to actually utilize that button. The register display, I want to leave that on the same panel that I'm on right now. I don't want it to carry me to the subtotal panel. I'm going to leave this blank as well. This is not a navigation button. And then the department list. I'll choose this little arrow right here, and that'll give me a list of all of my departments. So I'm doing a lotto sale. So I would choose this right here, and then save. Notice this department list is now populated, and I'll choose update. So now I have a button in place. Let's say that I want to change that. I see these browns are a little too close for me, so I'm going to go back to that lotto sale button. You'll see this highlighted yellow. I'll choose the edit button, and I'm just going to change the color. I'll make this, let's say, gray. I'll choose update, and all it does is just change the color. So let's make another button. Let's make a payout button for both my lottery scratch off department and my online lottery department. Now notice, remember, this lotto sale button, it only has one department assigned to it. This other one we're going to make is going to have multiple departments. So there's going to be a slight difference. So we'll choose the edit button. We're going to go back to our open department cell. We're going to make that a large button. I'll call this lottery lotto payout. I'm going to leave the caption size as small. The background, I'm going to make that actually red. I'll put a glyph here. I'll put giving money. So I may want to edit my text slightly here. We can see that the lottery and the lotto is kind of messed up. So I'll actually backspace that and then space it out. And there we go. That looks much better. I don't want this to be a manager override required. I don't want this to carry me to any other panels. I finally go to my department list, and then this time I'm going to choose two. I'm going to choose the lotto payout and the lottery payout. I'll choose the save button. Notice there's both departments there. I'll choose update, and then I'm happy with that. So I want to leave these changes in place. I'll choose the save panel option, and that will save the panel to this machine. Now, what if I have another register? I would like it to be easier to just have those panels and those buttons updated on that other register instead of having to manually do the same thing on each and every register. Well, that's where you can save these buttons to the database. You can choose the cancel button to go back a screen, go to your settings, and then under register settings, there is a save panels to DB. We're going to choose that. That'll save these buttons to the database. That way, on any other register at this store, I can simply go to this exact screen here on those and choose load panels from DB. And it's going to automatically load these changes that I've made on every register that I press that button on. There's also a setting you can enable right here called the auto load panels from DB. If that is checked and saved, every time the POS is closed and restarted, it's going to basically, whenever it's opened, it's going to automatically press this button for you. It's going to automatically load any changes that are made. If there's no changes, then there won't be any changes done. But if there's a new button edit that's been done on one register, it's going to automatically pull that for any other register with this setting checked. So let's take a look at how these buttons will function. There's my lotto sale, there's my lotto payout. So I'm going to do a $5 lotto sale. Notice it just immediately populates $5 into that department. I'll cash that out. I'm now going to do a $5 lotto payout. Notice the difference here. I'll choose the lottery payout. I have a selection here. Which department am I choosing? That's because this button actually has 2 departments assigned to it. So I can choose which one of these is actually having that payout done. So I'll choose my lotto payout. It properly assigns everything, and then I'll go ahead and subtotal and cash that out. All right, so let's go to the editor again. And let's say that I want to have a price change button. I'm going to put that button right below the price check. But I don't want just anybody to do it. I want a manager to have that permission and no one else. So I'll choose the button that I want to create. I'll edit that button. We'll look for that particular description. There we go. Temporary pricings, and it will tell us, allows the cashier to override the price for the selected item. And it requires that temporary price change permission. So I'll make that a medium button. Notice I can't make it large because there's already a button below that. So it's going to basically let you know and only give you the options of the buttons you can make, the size you can make it. And I'm going to leave that a small caption. I'll go ahead and make that the same color. And I want to have the manager override required. The prompt for login before change, I'm going to leave that unchecked. I don't want it to prompt every single time I press this button because it's already got the manager permission in place. So I'll update that. I'll save this. I'll save this to my database. And then let's test that out. I can ring up an item. And then I can do the price override. Notice it works without a hitch. I can change this price. I need to put a description in here. Perfect. So let's log in with someone who doesn't have the manager permission because I'm logged in right now with the manager permission. So I'm going to exit the POS, log off, log on, open the POS under the non-manager, and we'll do the exact same transaction. Price override, and then notice it's requiring a manager to log in. So at this point, the manager would have to use their fingerprint for biometrics or their employee number and password to log in. I'm going to go ahead and close this out and then log back in on the manager. Now, real quick, take note of this screen. Under that Choose Salesman button, notice there's 3 buttons in place here. They're blank. It's just empty space, so that's obviously blank. So I'm going to go ahead and exit the POS. I'm going to log back in as the manager, open the POS, and then notice this panel actually has a button there, the item return button, which wasn't visible under the regular cashier. Now, why is that? Well, if we go back to our button editor, we can see that that button actually exists on the button editor. We go to the edit button. There's not a manager override required. There's nothing there that would seem like it's being hidden. It's because it's based on a permission. So if we go back to director and we look at the cashier, we can see under cashier info, the actual POS permissions, the in-transaction permissions. Notice the checkbox for item return isn't checked. But on the manager side, it is checked. So if they don't have the permission, they're not even going to see that button on the screen. So no matter if that button is assigned to that panel, the employee first has to have permission to even see that button. If they don't have that permission, it's not even going to be visible on their screen. So we'll go back to our button editor. And let's say that we want to add a gift card sale button. Well, that's going to be on a different panel. I don't have any of my tenders here on this screen. So I'll go ahead and close this out, and I'll go to my subtotal panel. And this will be where all my tenders are, so I'm going to just add a button right here. We're going to, now if we look, we can see that there's a gift card sale and a gift card balance, but not a gift card redemption. We want to add a gift card redemption button. Well, that's going to be a tender button with a tender type properly set. So we're going to go to our tenders. It'll tell us what that button does. I'm going to go ahead and make that a medium and call this gift card redeem. I'll leave it the small caption size. I'll make this an orange button. We may or may not put a glyph in place. Yep, we'll leave that glyph there. I don't want the manager permission. I don't want this to carry me anywhere, so I'm going to leave these next two checked. Then we have the tender type. Well, for gift cards, I obviously want to choose the gift card tender type. The next area is going to be the tender ID. So I'm going to choose the arrow here. I'll choose the tender for gift cards. And then I'll choose the save button. Below that, we don't want this to require manager approval. And what that manager approval would be for is on amount, like a payment amount over a certain dollar amount. So I'm going to leave that blank. I don't want a manager required to approve certain transactional payment amounts. So I'm going to go ahead and choose update. And then we have our gift card redeem button. So that's a tender button. That's making this, ideally I'd want to put this on this panel because this is where all my other tenders are. This would make sense. So I'll go ahead and now choose save. And then let's go to the cashier functions panel. Let's say that from corporate we have every time there's a price change done, it's going to notify the store via the Fast Search Messenger that there's price changes that are done. Do your price change report. Well, we can put a button on the register to allow that. So we're going to choose a button here. We'll choose the edit button. That's going to be a launch module button. So I'll go to the drop down here. I'll look for the launch module. I'm going to leave the caption and the button size. Actually, I'll set the button size to medium. I'll leave the caption small. And I'll put a background here. And I don't want this to require a manager. I don't want this to navigate anywhere. And then I have the module option down here. I'll choose the arrow here, and I want that to be the price change report. I'll choose save and update. And then this has now a button in place for anybody to use that lets you view price changes. So we want to save these to the database. So we're going to cancel out of this screen and go to our settings and the register settings. And we're going to choose save panels to DB. And then now at this point, other registers in this location can choose the load panels from DB, and they can load those buttons that we've made. Now, let's say that we're in a corporate environment, and we made these button changes at this store, but we also want these button changes at other locations. Well, obviously, the store 2 can't pull from store 1 by using this load panels from DB button because those are separate databases. They're separate stores. So what we can do is we can actually pull these buttons back from the store to corporate and then send those down. So I'm going to go to director here. I'm going to first go to corporate mode. I'll log in, and then we can view these if we go to the maintenance module and we go to the POS settings tab at the top here, and there's the POS panels. Now, these 3 panels are going to be the ones we already have in place. Let's say that I want to get panels from a store. I can simply choose this drop down here, get panels from store, and choose the store that I want to pull those from. I'll choose store 1, and then I would choose the get button. At this point, it would immediately replace these 3 panels right here because these are what's active in the corporate database. So always remember that whenever you choose the get button, after you have a store selected, it's going to replace what's at corporate right now. What you may want to do is create a panel set. So let's say that store 1 is in price book zone 1. I can call this right here, price book zone number 1, and I'm going to create a new set. At this point, these panels that are in corporate's database now are saved under this particular name, a panel set. And then if I ever want to get panels from a set, I can choose that from the drop down here. So let me reload this here so that'll be populated. There's my price book zone 1 set. So I can now pull my panels from store 2, choose get, it would replace what's at corporate. And then if I ever wanted to load price book zone 1 set without pulling from store 1, I can just simply choose this get panel from set and then get, and it'll automatically replace what's at corporate to what was saved in that panel set. I can create a price book zone 2 set. I'll reload this so that's populated. And then I now have multiple panel sets. So this is a great way to pull from different stores if you have different panels and buttons and have those saved, all of those saved at corporate so that it's easily editable. You can also replace a panel set. So I could make changes at store 1, which is my price book zone 1 panel set, choose get, and then instead of creating a new panel set, I can simply choose the drop down here, price book zone 1, and replace what's there. If I want to send down what's at corporate to a location, I just simply choose, like, say, store 2 right here, and then send. That would then send what's at corporate down to store 2. If I want to send it to both stores, I can choose both stores and send to both stores. At this point, all they have to do is, on their POS settings, either choose load panels from DB, or even better, if they have the auto load panels from the database, they don't have to do anything at all. They just simply close the POS, open it back up, and then those changes are automatically there at the store. Alrighty, so I hope everybody learned something today when it comes to button editing and managing those panel sets and sending those down to other stores. As a reminder, we have these events every Friday at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. You can get to those by going to our website, goftx.com, choosing the FTX Lifeline button, scrolling down about halfway down that page, and choosing the webinar button. And this gives you a list of all the previous webinars, which can be viewed by choosing the view recording or the option to sign up for new webinars at the bottom of the page. I hope everybody's learned something today or had a refresher, and I hope to see you next week. If you have any feedback for webinars, please email us at info@goftx.com, or if you have any questions that are support related or how to do something, email us at websupport@fasttrackspos.com. Thank you.